even with HBO's storied legacy of producing numerous iconic TV series that reshaped the history of the medium, such as The Wire, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and Deadwood. The success of Game of Thrones was something truly special with its epic storylines, complex characters, and the elaborate art direction, the likes of which had never been seen before on the small screen. The television adaptation of the fantasy novels A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin ran from April 2011 to May 2019, consisting of 73 episodes over 8 seasons. The show was an immediate critical and rating success, and, like with any cultural phenomenon, there were numerous parodies of the series. Arguably, the most notable came from an unlikely source, the NBA.
I bet you need whole new library just for all defensive plays.
Game of Zones is a web-based series that revolves around the premise of a medieval take on the current landscape of the NBA and its players. It began as a one-off parody mashup, but soon took on a life of its own. Given how elaborate Game of Zones was from the very start, it's remarkable to think that there's only 2 people behind the series, at least for the first few seasons. The series was created by brothers Adam and Craig Malamud, while the project was produced by Bleacher Report. The origin of the series dates back to a previous project by the brothers, Sports Friends, which they made for Yahoo Screen. The basic premise of the series was famous athletes hanging out and talking.
Shaquille O'Neal, have you heard of him? Hi.
I thought his name was Shackle O'Neal.
Oh my god, you're such an idiot.
One day, after watching Game of Thrones, Adam and Craig got the idea of doing a parody of the show revolving around Tom Brady, with the Patriots depicted as one of the main families of the show, the Lannisters.
A Lannister always
Don't
pays...
say it.
However, no matter how much they tried to make the idea work, it was too off-brand for Sports Friends. Later, Adam and Craig had a meeting with Bennett Spector, who worked at Bleacher Report and was a fan of their work and wanted to collaborate with them. The brothers pitched the idea of doing a Game of Thrones mashup starring NFL players. Spector liked the idea, though he suggested that they make it revolve around NBA players instead, as Bleacher Report had recently been purchased by Turner and had a good relationship with the NBA. The project was made with no intention of there being any more such segments. However, ultimately, it became a long-running series spanning from May 2014 to May 2020, consisting of 39 episodes, as it redefined NBA culture through an elaborate fantasy world.
Stop it, please! Oh, seems I found the town's crier.
NBA champs. Come on! It's like clubbing baby seals.
Although it seems like Adam and Craig were always destined to work together, given their shared talents and chemistry, things could have turned out very differently for either sibling. Adam had always wanted to get into film and television production. In 2005, he graduated from Emerson College with a Bachelor in Visual and Media Arts. Initially, he worked in Los Angeles as a writer and producer for various non-scripted shows, mostly on reality TV series and game shows, including World's Worst Tenants, Family Game Night, and Pitcherica. Additionally, during this period, he acted in a number of low-budget films. His first was a starring role in the low-budget 2006 comedy horror film Yeti: A Love Story, about a group of friends who go out on a camping trip and encounter a seemingly evil Yeti. Later, after a number of other appearances in small projects, including the 2006 film written by his sister Andrea entitled Domestic Import, Adam starred in the 2017 sequel to Yeti: A Love Story, entitled Another Yeti Love Story, Life on the Streets. In 2010, Adam founded his own company, Muttsack, with which he experimented with various animation projects as a freelance animator. Conversely, Craig attended Wesleyan University and graduated with a master's degree in astrophysics. Despite his impressive credentials, though, upon leaving college in 2012, Craig taught himself how to animate before joining Adam in LA and working for Muttsack.
Yeah, I was gonna be a rocket scientist, and now I'm making cartoons about the rockets, so there you go.
The company was just the two of them, as they taught themselves everything they know about animation. Additionally, they always did everything in relation to their work, from writing, voice acting, music composition, directing, and animating. Prior to being joined by Craig, Adam produced a number of cartoons on his own. One of the most notable was Buddy Bird, which was Adam's first attempt at making an ongoing series. The show was a parody of South Jersey Philly fans trying to make their own radio show. All up, only 3 episodes were produced between September 2010 and May 2011.
Today, I adopted a dog. There he is. I named him Lenny Dogstra.
In what was another potential ongoing series, in September 2010, Adam produced a pilot episode for a proposed animated adaptation of the popular radio show Loveline, a syndicated radio call-in program offering medical and relationship advice to listeners. Host of the show, Dr. Drew Pinsky, was on board with the project, but then dropped out when he realized how graphic it would be.
So I was wondering, is it possible for a woman to come out of her anus?
Wow.
Betty, where did you go to finishing school, my dear? Where'd you go? I want to make sure my daughter doesn't go.
Arguably, the most important thing Adam did on his own was his first parody of Game of Thrones, entitled Game of Cones, which was released in May 2012. Although it's hard to watch the video and see its true potential as a 7-season, 39-episode series, the distinct talent, humor, and clever parodies that would characterize Game of Zones is definitely on display.
Are you sure about this?
I'm sure Bert about this.
Fittingly, Sports Friends was the first series that the brothers did together after Craig moved out to Los Angeles. Adam did the first season on his own, before Craig joined him for the second of the series. Right from the start, the brothers' talent and chemistry, which they would later use to produce Game of Zones, was on display. The idea of the show came from Baseball Friends, another cartoon Adam had made on his own back in 2011 when he was just learning how to animate. Baseball Friends proved to be popular on social media. Soon, Adam followed it up with a couple more episodes before expanding the idea to the series Basketball Friends. Yahoo Screen liked Adam's work, so they picked up the series and had Adam amalgamate them into Sports Friends. Ultimately, the series aired for 2 seasons, from July 2011 to December 2013, consisting of 20 episodes. Shortly before Adam and Craig joined Bleacher Report, between January and February 2014, the brothers produced 2 episodes of another attempted series, Jersey Zoo, about an animal enclosure in which the animals start speaking as they pick up the culture around them.
I need you to do me a favor, man. Can you do a favor for a harbor seal? Can you get me a gun?
The brothers also collaborated on one of their biggest and best projects, a music video clip complete with lyrics and original music, entitled Hop Hop Hop, which was released in March 2014. Sadly, although this is one of their best pieces of work, it has been criminally underrated over the years.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
When the Melomot brothers were asked to do another episode of Game of Zones, they had no idea how to go about it, as they felt that they had already matched all the players from the NBA to the most obvious storylines from Game of Thrones.
What if I never play again?
Boozer.
Adam and Craig soon learned that trying to stick so closely to the storylines of the original series was too difficult, particularly in regards to continuity, when certain players and officials are depicted as specific characters from the show and having to continue without correlation. Consequently, Kevin Durant and Kevin Love were both used to parody the Game of Thrones character Brienne of Tarth.
There's another tub!
Additionally, LeBron James was used to parody the characters Jorah Morant and Jaime Lannister respectively. When the brothers made the creative decision to do an 8-episode story arc for the 4th season, they realized that they couldn't rely solely on metaphors from the show. Ultimately, Adam and Craig chose to set Game of Zones in a Game of Thrones-inspired medieval fantasy universe, with plots influenced by real-world NBA storylines. So, for the 4th season onwards, Game of Zones had a look and feel of the original TV series, with a few residual metaphors from the show, like Spurs represented as White Walkers, and some direct homages, like LeVar Ball as the Mother of Dragons.
That's my boy!
So, ultimately, the show would take on a life of its own. Furthermore, the brothers would seize every opportunity to use smaller jokes as Easter eggs. For example, in Mike D'Antoni's chamber, there are a lot of books. As they didn't want to waste a ton of screen space on generic books, they took the time to think of funny titles because it makes the experience much richer for basketball fans who'd understand and appreciate the in-jokes. Working for Bleacher Report was beneficial in a number of ways. One aspect that was invaluable to the series was helping with creating and crafting Easter eggs for hardcore fans. After they were done writing the first draft or fleshing out a concept, the brothers would run it by basketball reporters at the company, as they knew the current game inside and out, and could contribute a level of detail that the brothers never could have on their own. Given that the staff of Bleacher Report are all sports fans, they could suggest various references for the respective teams that only hardcore fans would recognize. The brothers knew the Easter eggs would really resonate with fans, so they wanted to have as many as possible, and, more importantly, they wanted to get them right. Ultimately, the key to the success of the series came when the brothers made the decision to break away strictly from following Game of Thrones storylines and develop their own universe and canon. Soon, they put together a series Bible. Normally, show developers would pitch an idea with all the material and the structure of it ahead of time. Instead, Adam and Craig had to figure all that out after they started making the show. Basically, they had the highly unusual task of reverse engineering a viral video into a series. Even more remarkable is the fact that they actually succeeded in such a strange endeavor. Critically, the brothers also made the creative decision to make the show a retrospective of sorts of an entire NBA season, rather than trying to be topical and keeping up with social media debates and memes, which typically change day to day, which made it impossible to keep up the animation with the constantly changing events of the league. Originally, the brothers did almost everything themselves, including the writing, voice acting, and every aspect of the animation process, with the exception of storyboarding, as it had some help with that from Pat Keegan, who would later go on and work for the critically acclaimed series Rick and Morty. However, after the phenomenal success of the first 4 seasons, Bleacher Report expanded the production team behind the series, resulting in more complex animation and longer episodes from the 5th season onwards. After Adam and Craig were joined by a team, the process changed and improved significantly. On average, it took from 6 to 8 weeks to make a single episode for the series, at least in the latter seasons. Like before, the brothers would write, record, and sketch out every episode over the course of 2 weeks. Now though, instead of animating the series personally, they'd pass along all their work to the rest of the team to complete the process. First, a storyboard artist would assemble a rough outline of the visual narrative. They'd then pass their work down the line to the character designers and background artists, who would then give their contributions to the animators. The team's compositor would then put all the elements together, adding special effects as required. Finally, an editor would put everything together. Meanwhile, as the rest of the team designed and assembled everything, Adam and Craig would restart their process by beginning work on the next episode. Ultimately, they would always aspire to get the assembly line process to resemble something like that of the TV series South Park, who are typically able to produce an entire 20-minute episode from start to finish in just a week or so. But the Game of Thrones teams were always well aware of the reality that a single episode of South Park has millions of dollars behind it, with a bigger team that has more than 20 years experience while working with an animation style that's much simpler. Remarkably, despite the relatively small production team, Game of Thrones was always quite polished. Over its run, the production time got longer because they were always trying to outdo themselves by making the stories, details, and artwork better and better each episode. Additionally, the brothers managed to keep the show interesting for NBA fans who hadn't necessarily seen Game of Thrones and didn't understand the references. This was because, like with The Simpsons during their golden era, from season 2 to season 9, the parodies worked because they were carefully selected and executed so that people didn't necessarily need to be familiar with the source material for the joke to still land.
We never reference something that doesn't contribute to the overall story, so even if you don't know what we're referencing, it still works. If you know the reference, all the better, and people think they've discovered something when they realize where we took it from.
The brothers and their unique personal perspective and priorities also helped shape the distinct characteristics of the show. Craig was always more of a Game of Thrones purist, and felt that their series needed to stay steadfast to the narrative of the show. Conversely, Adam was a basketball nerd and prioritized basketball references and jokes over the continuity in relation to the storylines that they had previously referenced. Ultimately, despite their different perspectives, they always focused more on getting basketball stuff right rather than the Game of Thrones references. They were always aware that their core audience was basketball fans, so they were always conscious of the fact that the series had to work for that specific group. Additionally, the brothers were obsessed about not making mistakes, and paid meticulous attention to every little bit of the show, as they wanted every episode to feel like it was written by fans of their respective team, even though Adam and Craig were in fact 76ers fans. Although both Adam and Craig did the same type of work, they approached each stage differently. Adam was more of a writer, while Craig was more of a director. So, while they'd both write the scripts, Adam would take charge over that part of the process. Later, during the voiceover work and editing, Craig would take charge over the performances and how to pace everything out. Basically, Adam was the starter, the guy with all the ideas, while Craig was the finisher, as he took everything they'd come up with throughout the production process and put them together and made everything work. Evidently, in terms of the response from the NBA itself, players either loved the series or were, at worst, indifferent to it. They had a number of NBA figures reach out to them as they were fans of the series. Perhaps most notably, the Warriors coach Steve Kerr, who reached out to them before the 15-16 season and asked the brothers to make a special video for the team, complete with a bunch of inside jokes to play for the team on the first day of training camp. The brothers found the experience both amazing and frustrating. They appreciated both the praise from Kerr and the fact that he armed them with a ton of material to ridicule Warriors players with. However, the project had a number of drawbacks. As Game of Thrones purists, Craig found it frustrating because, in order to make a number of jokes work, they had to break a significant amount of the mythology of the series that they had previously established, particularly in regards to players that they had already used to parody Game of Thrones characters. Also, there are a number of inside jokes that they knew no one would really get, specifically Brandon Rush's catchphrase, which he recorded himself for the episode. Ultimately, although the brothers were happy with their work, they still found the process weird, not only because it was an episode made up largely of jokes only a select few people would get, but it was also strange when the brothers watched the Warriors watching the episode.
Real drink. Brandon, get him what he needs. Get what you need.
Ultimately, the closest they ever got to hatred was a subtweet allegedly from TJ Warren. The brothers theorized that, as professional athletes, NBA players get a lot of real harsh criticism, so to see it in cartoon form is a little disarming.
People, when they see themselves in a cartoon form, so it's sort of disarming, and I think they take it as a roast, and so we've gotten a lot of positive feedback.
During the time with Bleacher Report, Adam and Craig worked on a number of other projects for the company. Between October 2014 and December 2015, the brothers produced a series, Sports Gods, about icons of various sports who were depicted as deities, discussing a number of subjects relating to various sports. The series consisted of only 5 episodes. There was also The Champions, a parody of reality TV that imagined icons of soccer living together in a giant mansion, the first of which episode was released in September 2018. Although the series was created by stand-up comedian Andy Haynes, it was developed by the Malamut brothers, who wrote, voiced, and directed all the episodes in Season 1 and 3. The brothers also made a one-off project, Super Team, a Warriors musical, which was released in October 2016, in between Game of Zone seasons. The project came about after Kevin Durant joined Golden State earlier that year when he signed with the team as a free agent in July, forming what was effectively a super team.
Yes, we are a super team. We're the cheat code that destroys the league.
For the project, the brothers composed, voiced, and animated the entire video. In January 2015, the brothers released Kobe Bryant Let It Go Frozen parody, Let It Tank, a joking take on the song Let It Go from the 2013 film Frozen. For the project, Adam and Craig wrote the joke lyrics and animated the short.
Without Phil, why even try?
The Malamut brothers have always had a lot of interests outside of sport, particularly Craig, who's really into academics. So, he's expressed an interest in exploring some sort of cartoon concept that could allow him to explore interests such as history and science. And, as of April 2022, the brothers are in the early stages of developing a project with a major network, though little information has been released in regards to just what form the project will take. Meanwhile, as Adam was waiting for the animation deal to materialize, he became curious about NFTs and their potential, particularly in regards to directly selling them to hardcore fans, and the potential to allow fans to community fund and creatively contribute to projects that they believe in, allowing creators to avoid the executive red tape that typically sanitizes content for a mainstream audience. In August 2021, Adam created Sketchy Dads, inspired by his habit of sketching men's faces with distinct characteristics. Adam admits that the project is an experiment with no clear goal other than to create 500 original images, and then see what happens. As the project has progressed, Adam has created numerous characters, giving them more and more characteristics and backstories. As a result, he's gradually built a universe for a potential series. Depending on the popularity of the project, Adam has suggested that the experiment may take on a much bigger life in various other forms. Whatever the brothers do in the future, they have one goal in mind. Despite the success of Game of Zones, the brothers are little known, even amongst fans of their work. So, whatever the future holds for them, their main goal is to get famous enough that when people search for their surname online, Google doesn't try to correct them. Over the course of the 7 seasons of Game of Zones, the Malamut brothers perfectly echoed the popular TV series it was inspired by, with artful parodies that perfectly merge engaging storylines with humor as the fictitious archaic world of Game of Thrones collided with real-life NBA drama.
Shall we complete this process now?
The last episode of Game of Zones was released on the 28th of May 2020, about a year after the controversial final episode of Game of Thrones aired. Unlike the TV series at its finale, which was universally hated, even by people involved on the show, the conclusion of Game of Zones was well received. In the final episode of the series, LeBron makes his stake at the throne for the title of the best player of all time, facing off against Michael Jordan and various others who have been in line for the title of the GOAT. Ultimately, Game of Zones ended on a conclusive note, with the whole story neatly wrapped up by the end. However, unlike the TV show's finale, the ostensible conclusion of Game of Zones left fans wanting more. And, given that the premise of Game of Zones had already long since shifted from being a scene-for-scene parody of the TV show to a series of current-day NBA events, humorously playing out in a Game of Thrones-inspired universe, the series certainly could have continued, as it no longer needed the TV series to dictate its own storylines. Additionally, even with all the classic Game of Thrones scenes that the series had referenced, there was still more that they could have parodied. Unfortunately, as far as the Malamut brothers are concerned, given that the original TV series had concluded with someone taking the throne, and that Game of Zones had also concluded by naming the GOAT, it didn't seem like there was more for them to explore. However, although the brothers were happy to conclude Game of Zones, there was an alternate ending that the brothers had toyed with, something that would have left the series open to a whole new TV series universe. After the final episode of Game of Zones had aired, the brothers revealed that, because they both loved history, they had thought of the perfect way to continue the series. Sort of. After the final shot of Game of Zones, the camera would pull back to reveal that the show had been playing out in a Westworld-like universe. The series would then switch to being a parody of the TV show Westworld, in which NBA players occupy a Wild West-style universe in a spin-off series. Ultimately, although there aren't any plans to continue Game of Zones, it could be resurrected in the near future because of the future of the original TV series that inspired it. Shortly before the finale of Game of Thrones, in November 2018, it was announced that there was talk of a spin-off series to the show based on the 2018 book Fire and Blood about the history of the House of Targaryen. In October 2019, the series House of the Dragon, a prequel series to Game of Thrones, set 200 years before the original show, was given a straight-to-series order. The show is set to air in 2022, consisting of 10 episodes. Assuming House of Dragon is successful, there's at least a slim chance that Game of Zones may return in one form or another, if only briefly, to once again capitalize on the cultural phenomenon of the original TV series that, inadvertently, inspired one of the greatest, most elaborate parodies of all time.
Spare some wine for your goat?
Our goat don't drink wine.